Good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. I'm here with Deputy County Executive Ken Jenkins for our Thursday, February 25th update of the Westchester coronavirus outbreak. We're going to cover information about the spread of the infection. We'll talk briefly about our vaccinations, some other news about centers that are being identified and developed for vaccine distribution, and then we'll have a special announcement, introduce you to the newest member of our senior management team here in Westchester County. We're doing the updates twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. So after we do this update today, we'll be back on Monday, March 1st, which begins the 13th month of our dealing with the coronavirus pandemic. The original patient 0 was identified on March 3rd, and we'll mention once more about what we're going to do on March 3rd for memorial purposes on that date. It's certainly nothing to celebrate, but it is something to remember and to recognize as we complete a full year under this pandemic, which has tested us all and forced us to do things differently and to learn how to cope with something that we had none of us had direct experience with. First, I'll start with the numbers for today. The tracker for New York State is up. You'll find it on New York State Department of Health tracker COVID-19. For Thursday, February 25th, we currently have 6,145 active cases in Westchester County. That's on a basis of 106,129 individuals that have been tested positive for COVID at some point in time over this 12-month period. 99,984 of them tested positive up through 2 weeks ago. So the difference between those two numbers is the active case number, 6,145. Our infection ratio for yesterday was 5.2%. We've hovered slightly above and slightly below 5.2. That number is less than it has been earlier in the fall when we had peak numbers, and of course a lot less than it was during the summertime of last year when we were at the low point during this pandemic. We have tested 2,043,360 tests. Since we have 1 million people in the county, that averages out to at least 2 tests per person, but we know now that we're well past that. Individuals have been tested multiple times based on their occupation or circumstance, if they've traveled. So the testing number really shows that we're committed to trying to identify exactly how many people have COVID. We know that there are people that have tested that have not been tested over the course of the year and also had the disease. But what we know that we can track is 106,000, which represents 10% of the population, approaching 11% of the population of Westchester County that have had the disease at some point in time or another. Our total testing just for yesterday was 14,231 tests, and that's a significant number of tests. If you went back to where we were in the beginning of the pandemic, when we were testing only in people's homes with an outbound health department team of nurses, we had an utter fraction of that in terms of testing. And now you have rapid testing, Binex card testing, as well as the no swab testing. So the testing component of this is almost faded from the news because of the number of people that have been tested. But 6,145 active cases compares to a week ago, same day, 7,030 cases. You go back 2 weeks ago, that was 7,922 cases. 3 weeks ago, 9,343 cases. And you go back to January 28th, which is roughly a month ago, 11,193 cases, even more than that the week before. So we clearly now have a 5-6 week diminution in the number of active cases. This is what I've said the last 2 or 3 updates. And we're cautious about documenting a trend. A trend does not happen in 1 week or in a couple of consecutive days, but after 4, 5, 6 weeks, we think it's reasonable to say now we appear to be on the back slope of the second bell curve of our infection. The infections are still there. We still had 579 people test positive. That's a lot of people, but that is significantly less than the number of people 2 weeks ago. And since individuals can fight the disease off with their antibodies, that's what happens to the larger number of us that get COVID. However sick we may get, not so sick that we have to go to the hospital, then we can say that we are sloping downward. But we still have a ways to go. Even though we've dropped 5,000 plus active cases in the last 5 weeks, we can't project that means in another 5 weeks we'll be down to 0 cases. We really have to look at the vaccination numbers to determine if that's going to be what resists the number of people additionally that get the contract the disease. In addition to the 6,145 active cases, we have 383 people hospitalized right now. That number is now under 400, which is good. Just a few weeks ago, we were barely under 600, so that is 200 less people hospitalized than were 4 or 5 weeks ago, and that would be about a one-third reduction in the amount of hospitalization. That is good news. 383 people, and this is a few days ago, is still a large number of people, but it is nowhere near the capacity of our hospital system, which could, in theory, hospitalize at the maximum somewhere around 2,500 to almost 3,000 people. So we are not in any jeopardy of our system being overtaxed. With the downward slope in infection, all of which is good, we're still at a stable point. You may recall that the state changed the metrics for tracking the concern that they had from percentage of infection to available hospital beds. So if we're in a position where we have an inventory of 2,500 hospital beds, we have 383 people hospitalized for COVID, that is a good sign. And the fact that that number has been going down consistently is all good news. To date, we have 2,081 individuals who have died from COVID. Of course, the number of deaths is always an accumulative number. We try to draw some comparisons over the week. Over the last week, we've lost 40 people to the COVID virus. The prior week, we lost the same amount. And the week before that, we lost a little bit over that, about 56 people. So the number of deaths have reduced a little bit in terms of the total aggregate numbers over the course of a week. But when you lose 40 people, you lose 40 individuals, 40 human beings. As I'm always quick to say, 40 people who were loved, who were cared about by somebody, again, somebody's spouse, somebody's relative, sibling, somebody's teacher, or somebody's next-door neighbor. So we never want to minimize statistics and fatalities to just being integers, that they are individuals. And we're going to mention once again what's coming up next Wednesday. We'll have one more time to mention it on Monday to remember those people that have died because of COVID, but we'll touch on that in a little bit. So the number of fatalities, the number of hospitalizations, and the number of total active cases have been continued in the downward direction. Good news, but it's still a slow and steady reduction. It is not a dramatic reduction, and we're not at the point yet where we can anyway assume that we are out of this. We have seen this before in the first bell curve, when we accelerated quickly earlier last year. Then we had a downward slope in May into June, went down very low, stayed very flat during the summer, but then it rose again. So we can't assume that this downturn will go back to zero or near zero in fatalities and stay that way. We're not sure, but the news is encouraging. We treat that as a positive. Shifting over to the issue of vaccinations, there are three major facilities that the county has direct involvement in. The state, as it does with testing, as it does with data, and now as it does with vaccinations, makes the decision on when and where and who can be vaccinated. We have not changed in the last 2 weeks any appreciable number of people that are eligible for the vaccination. The eligibility continues to be 65 years of age and older, those of any age that have underlying health conditions, also called comorbidities, and those that are in specific occupational cohorts. And we've talked already about first responders, people in the healthcare field, and then the state has added some other categories: restaurant workers, taxi and limousine drivers, education professionals, and a number of other fields of endeavor. But they are still, when you aggregate those different constituencies, it is still the smaller portion of the society. The vast majority of individuals in New York State are not yet eligible for vaccines, and we don't have the vaccine production and quantity to distribute at this stage of the game. We've mentioned in the last couple of updates about the problems we've had with weather. We've had no weather issues this week. We have gotten our doses coming in. We're catching up with those people that missed appointments because we had to cancel, partially because of the bad weather, and then partially because the weather in the Midwest stopped us getting the influx of doses. So we didn't have the doses, so we had to cancel those who were scheduled. If you were scheduled, we'll mention this in a second or two again. If you were scheduled and you had cancellation, the intent is to get you back in, to give you your shot. And if it's a second shot, we're very oriented to time circumstances, since Pfizer and Moderna both have time triggers by which the second shot should be given. We intend to meet that. It will create some extra stress at the various vaccination centers, a few more people coming in at the same time frame and cohort. We may experience some lines because of it, but it is not because of bad management. It's because we want to catch up with people who missed their shots and to get those shots done in a timely fashion. And as we go through that, we'll highlight that a little bit more in the next few minutes. We'll mention that through yesterday, February 24th, the county center facility had administered 65,737 vaccinations, 65,700 plus vaccinations. Some of those represent second shots for individuals that also got their first shot. So it's not exactly a correlation of number of people to the number of vaccinations given, but that's still a significant number of people that have been vaccinated now out of the one county center facility. And in a few seconds, Ken will cover the next major vaccination center that is now taking in names and so forth in the city of Yonkers. So we have the county center, state-sponsored. The county helps as a partner. So does Westchester Medical Center. State-run facility, county center, open 8 to 7, 7 days a week, and cranking out more than 1,000 vaccinations every day that it's open. In fact, a lot more than 1,000 a day. We have 2 clinics now that have been established, the traditional White Plains downtown clinic run by the county government, and we also have now opened up a clinic, temporary but for an extended period of time, at Westchester Community College. Between those 2 entities, we have issued 10,867 vaccinations. That does include second shots as well. So the aggregate within just the county center and the 2 clinics is over 75,000, in fact, 76,624 vaccinations given. That number is rising every day, and it's rising by a fairly decent increment. We'll break 80,000 in a couple of days since we go through the weekend at the county center. We go through the end of Saturday. We're off on Sundays in the 2 county clinics. We're making progress, and then with other sources of vaccination coming up. But the progress is being made, and for those who have not yet gotten their vaccines, there's no statistic that involves other people getting vaccinations that make you happy. You will only be satisfied when you get your shot. And if you're in the eligible cohort, we're doing everything we can as a county government, operating under the direction of the state, to try to provide those vaccines as fast as we can. We have made a tremendous effort to try to vaccinate teachers, those in the education field, and others who work in a school setting, so that we can make every effort possible for local districts to open schools. School superintendents, school boards make the decision of whether they open their schools or not. Our county responsibility is to help that process happen, in one part by vaccinating people who work in the school system, and then in second part by having our county Department of Health work with the local school district in the various ways that gets implemented in the structure of the classroom setting and so forth. The county is not a decision maker that decides whether something opens or closes, but we are there to assist and aggressively do so, not just on the sidelines, to try to actively help. The vaccinations that we're doing right now for people in the education field is an essential part of opening those schools. I personally have said in numerous updates, I believe that schools should be open, that in-classroom learning is the best possible learning for young people. On the other hand, there's a concern about safety, so we do those things that we can do to help make it safe and try to do it as fast as we can so that the kids do have some academic experience as we go through these weeks, and then also the obvious, the socialization elements of this, which are essential. Young kids need contact with other kids. Being home at an extended level of time has caused issues. It's caused mental health issues. It certainly caused pressures in families. Not all the time can a family member be there to watch or help the kids as they do remote learning. So we are trying to do the best we can to make sure schools open, and so therefore we are targeting at our county clinics educational folks. We have done quite a bit of the police, the fire, and the EMS. I was with one of the local police chiefs just within the last hour, and going over, and he said everybody that he needed to have that wanted vaccines got them. So in that one particular police department, we're fine. We're checking on that on a constant basis to make sure that we're there. So much of all of this comes down to statistics. We've talked about vaccination statistics. We've talked about infection statistics. There are some other statistics that are not within our knowledge or control. The state structures not only the county center, the Cumming Yonkers Center, and delivery of product to the county's 2 clinics. They also give allocations to various pharmacies around the county, around the state. They determine which pharmacies, they determine how much. We're now posting that information on our website so that you'll be able to see that. And the way the state has structured this, they're encouraging these pharmacies to reach out to their customer base and to make sure that customers of that pharmacy who are 65 and older get the priority for the shot. So the thinking that the state has, as I interpret it, is that they want seniors to get their shots locally through a pharmacy that they've got a relationship with. The quantity of doses do not suffice for everybody to get a shot. So there is a frustration of trying to satisfy a demand that exceeds the supply. We're told that in the coming weeks there's going to be an increase of supply. We're expecting the Johnson & Johnson product to come on market shortly. We have heard that there'll be 3 million additional doses available immediately. We hope that'll continue, whatever else is within the FDA control. And as they ramp up production and these different things, we'll see more and more product out in the marketplace and vaccinate a larger number of people. It's very simple. The more people we vaccinate, the less people will get the disease. The less people that get the disease, the less people hospitalized, the less people who we lose. And as those numbers for infection start to drop down, we open up more of the society. It's open in certain ways, not open universally. People are chomping at the bit. I want to do this. I want to be able to do that. I don't want to miss this. I don't want to miss that. Those are all very valid concerns, valid desires to go back to normalcy. I do too. We all do. That happens with the reduction of the infection. So the reduction of the infection made possible by the vaccine protecting people from getting the disease, and that's how we get out of this. That's the simple gist of it. There are the state-sponsored pop-up centers that have happened. They've had a number in Westchester County. We had one last weekend in Portchester, and they're going to have some pop-ups that will follow pop-ups that were held 3 or 4 weeks ago to give the second shots to the people that got the first shots. This is a 2-shot affair. We cannot afford to miss the mark on the second shots, and so those were done in Peekskill and Yonkers and Mount Vernon, and those pop-ups will follow, and there'll be pop-ups in newer communities. We'll let the governor make the announcements as this falls within his scope. In the pop-up situations, though, they're not open to the general public for you to come up to the door and get a shot. That's not possible in any of these locations. You must get an appointment in advance. In the pop-ups, what the state has done is they have got a medical partner and a community partner together to identify a certain cohort within a community, and then those individuals are outreached to in order to receive the shots of the doses that are being given for the pop-up. And the pop-up is a temporary vaccination, 1, 2, or 3 days in a particular location. I've seen a couple of them already, very efficiently done, but not walk up, hey, I live here, can I get a shot? That hasn't worked that way. This is constructed by the state in order to reach certain target markets. And in some cases, the target markets they're reaching are the markets of people that have difficulty. They may not have a car. They may live in a local area. They may have poor economics or poor transportation access, certainly poor health access. So they're going into urban settings to try to make sure that people in those settings, seniors, people of color, have that extra effort to get the shots to try to make sure that everybody gets sort of a fair shot at all of this stuff. The information that we do have that we can share, we share on our dashboard. And we're updating that and modifying as we go along. I believe we're going to have some information on the bottom of the screen or taking over the visual of the screen that will tell you some useful data. Normally speaking, and I track this from my years in corporate life, you never can have too much data. I give you a certain amount of statistics, and you look at them, it's interesting, you ask questions, you want more statistics to tell you more of a picture. We share that which we have that we hope is relevant. We can't share what we don't have, and there's a certain amount of this information that the state makes the decision not to share with local governments. But whatever we do have, the testing locations, some data that we've gotten from the state about how many people by zip code have been vaccinated. Some of the data, it tracks certainly aggregate number of cases, positive cases, and then how many people are currently active cases. And some of the new addition to our statistical information includes vaccinations by zip code, vaccine allocation by week, the total number of vaccinations at the centers that we've talked about, the county health center, and then the aggregate number of vaccinations at the 2 health clinics, which we put together. The dashboard is automatically updated. It already contains the county active case map. So if you know the way Westchester looks, you can look at the map, click on a community, find that community's situation. The COVID-19 test site map, as I said, the total number of active cases, new cases, cumulative by municipality, total number of fatalities, total number of persons tested, Any of the hot zones that New York State designates, we don't have any of them at the moment here in Westchester County. We did for about a month and a half, 2 months, the positivity rates, and then this information provided by graphs. There was a point in time not that long ago that the information came out in a map that we sent out as a press release on an email list. Now we have it on the dashboard. You can look at the dashboard any time of the day or night, and if it's updated at a regular basis, you'll get more up-to-date information on the dashboard, the county dashboard, than you would have through the other mechanisms. And we went through a period of time of trying to get this thing to a level that you could read it and see it. It's not as easy as it may look from the user side of it, but hopefully this is our effort to be transparent as a county government. And we do this not only for the benefit of the individual citizens, we do this for the benefit of those in local governments, the municipal officials whom we speak with once a week, and also to the extent that it is helpful to the school officials, the school superintendents who we also speak to once a week, on the belief that the more data they have, the more they can make decisions about different issues. And I'll mention one just in passing. We'll cover it more in detail at some later point in time. We have been given the authority now across New York State to open amusement parks. We did not have that authority for the last year plus, or almost a year. And so now we have the possibility of opening Playland. We are now planning to open Playland. We haven't established the open date and the close date. We have to work through the protocol of what control of capacity, because we'll have to operate it with a limit to the number of people that can go in. How are we going to sanitize the facilities? How are we going to handle social distancing? This is quite a challenge when you have people at an amusement park where people move about, sort of in an irregular pattern of movement, as opposed to what happens when you could put them in a queue line and structure them differently. But the data informs us on what we need to know in order to make sure that we have a healthy situation. And we have to be candid. Whenever we have data, if the data goes in the wrong direction and we see a spreader reality to it, then we have to shut something down. We haven't had to do it yet, but we're prepared to do it. And people need to understand that the data is important for us in order to make intelligent decisions. We're not always right, and I'm the first person to say that if we're wrong, I'm going to admit it, and we're going to try to correct it and fix it to the extent that we can. I have a lot of very intelligent people in this administration whose judgment I trust, but by the same token, we're all humans, and we're all going through something for the first time. And if we make a mistake, we'll try to be smart about it, and we'll try to fix it to the best of our ability. So we're moving now with the next big announcement in the world of vaccinations, which is the opening of a second big mega center, our language, here in Westchester County. The first one at the county center has gone very well. Now we have a second one coming in the southwest corner of the county in the city of Yonkers. And Ken Jenkins, who's represented Yonkers in the county legislature, has been chair of the county board of legislators, will tell us a little bit about that location and where we are at in the opening and the development of it. Ken?
Thanks, George. Certainly the FEMA New York State website at the New York State Armory on North Broadway in Quincy Place in Yonkers started taking appointments on the 24th of February, specifically for 7 zip codes that were identified in Mount Vernon and Yonkers. So on the 24th, those 7 zip codes started. You had to go to the MI eligible website. Those links are certainly on the screen and certainly on the county website. But the MI eligible website, you put in your zip code, and if you were in one of those eligible zip codes, it pops up. The actual appointments are going to start on March 3rd. So people started on the 24th to get appointments starting March 3rd for those specific zip codes. Then on March 3rd at 8 o'clock in the morning, the site will open up to any Westchester resident. So again, the MI eligible website, on the New York State MI eligible website, to be able to have an appointment. Once again, you need an appointment to show up at the site. You cannot just walk in as in any of the sites. You must have an appointment to be able to do that. And please keep close to your appointment times, no matter what the weather is like right now. Since we had the beautiful days that we've had, people have not been scurrying in to make appointments when there's snow outside, but we want to make sure that happens. Just I want to add really one thing quickly for the Yonkers pop-up site that was at Nodine Hill. Those folks are getting their second shot this week. And recall, we did have that snow event on the Sunday. That was the last day of the event. Please make sure to check with the provider to see when your appointment times are, because some of those folks got moved from Sunday to Saturday. I expect that they're going to keep those appointments on Sunday for those second shots, and it's really important to do that. Again, March 3rd, 8 a.m. for all Westchester residents. If you're in those 7 zip codes, Mount Vernon and Yonkers, you can make an appointment now. They're going to do 1,000 shots a day, and we certainly thank our federal representatives and our state folks for making sure that we got that essential site. Everyone's been asking for it. The county executive would love to have one site in each corner of the county if we can. But again, it's a vaccine shortage, and we're going to continue to do all things that we can to get people vaccinated. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. And just to reinforce what Ken said, we're very excited. We're very appreciative of the state and the federal government for opening another site in Yonkers. If you look at the map of Westchester as a rectangle, Yonkers is in the southwest corner of the county, and we would love to have something in the southeast corner that would serve New Rochelle and the Sound Shore, something in the northwest corridor that's reachable for Peekskill to Ossining, something in the northeast corner that would be Mount Kisco and the towns of northeastern Westchester, and it's a big state, and there's only so many allocation that Westchester as one county is going to get, but we're pushing on every corner because we want to vaccinate everybody that wants one in Westchester County, and we have 1 million people. If we have 80% of the people that want a shot, we want 80% of the people to get the shot. That'll require some additional categories being made eligible. But for right now, this is a good step forward, and we think the numbers are going to start to jump here in Westchester. And we've shown already at the county center that we have used that center to the equivalent, and in some cases ahead of what the Javits Center in New York City has done, or Aqueduct out in Queens, or upstate in Syracuse, some of the other places where vaccines are there. Just like early voting and most things, Westchester folks respond when given the opportunity. If we can make it convenient to the greatest number of people, that's really what this is about in the pop-ups. If we make it convenient, we get the response, we lower the amount of infection, we lower the amount of illness, we get through this. It's really that simple. So, Ken, thank you for that. And both Ken and I make it a point of trying to go to these various facilities just to see it, understand what's happening there, whether it's a pop-up center or whether it's now a new major vaccination site, just so we have an understanding of what it is. We don't run it, but it's good to know, and you can bet he and I are going to be jumping around these different places over the weekend just to make sure that there's some connection. We're comfortable with it. The standard information on vaccines we provide for you here on the screen. It's on our webpage, westchestergov.com. It goes over the different state connections that you can have, what phases we're in, phase 1A, 1B, with a couple of 1C added. This is the breakdown of eligibility that the state has. There's an Am I Eligible place to click on and find out if you're eligible. If you have questions, there's the hotline number at 1-833-697-4829. There's a COVID vaccine form that you have to complete. And it's one thing if you complete it for yourself. If you have an aged relative or next-door neighbor, if you're in an apartment building, somebody lives down the hall and you know that they don't have computer skills, do a good deed and reach out to them and ask them if they've gotten their shot, if they need some help. And if you have the computer skills and you can help them, by all means do that. That's a good thing to do, and it helps us find that person who may be living alone and is fearful and doesn't quite know how to interact with the system. It's complicated even for the best of us, and more complicated still for people of advanced age, limited vision, limited computer experience. Give them a helping hand. Go on to these websites, and you'll find out all the information that you need. March 3rd, which is next Wednesday, is the one-year cycle of when the first case was designated in Westchester County. That was over 2,000 deaths ago. Fortunately, the index patient did not die, and the people that were originally infected in that first iteration, the vast majority of them remained relatively healthy and have gotten through this, but so many others have been lost in all of this. And we had a Ribbons of Remembrance memorial out at Lenoir Preserve in Yonkers, beautiful nature center preserve setting overlooking the Hudson River, overlooking the Palisades of New Jersey. We brought that indoors in early December because of the weather. It makes it really inconvenient to be there in snow-packed field and so forth. We have it here in our county office building, and that's where we're going to have a modest ceremony. On Wednesday, coming up March the 3rd, we'll have an interfaith service with members of the clergy coming to help us deal with the spiritual side of what we have experienced in a secular side. We'll have a moment of silence. We'll have the ringing of bells across Westchester County. It's all meant to be very modest. Flags will be flown at half-staff at the direction of the President of the United States starting this Sunday, February 28th. We were preparing to do it, but, it's the right thing to do to show respect. We did it earlier in the year when it was within our authority, and now we'll follow the President's lead and lower the flags to remember our fallen neighbors and friends and, learn something from this experience. So we hope that you'll be part of that if you can be, and we'll give you more information on Monday. I don't know if we're filming it. People will be able to follow it on Facebook, most likely. The area that we're going to be doing it is somewhat limited, so we're not really going to be able to handle a large group of people socially distanced, but you can perhaps join us online and be part of it. I want to mention something that has come up. It may be tied to the pandemic, or it may just be tied to what's happening in the society at large, and that is the growing incidence of hate acts directed at Asian Americans. Now, when this pandemic originally began, there was some of that directed, perhaps because the pandemic started out, as far as we know, in China. But there is never a reason to express hatred to a group of people. And we have News 12 reporter Karen Hawaii, I don't know if I pronounced her name properly. She's Asian American, and she had a wise crack thrown at her, go back to your own country, when she was out doing a story. Well, she's from Boston, so that's her home country. But it's just a terrible incident to hear. And so often, we hear about, the traditional hatreds and expressions of racism toward African Americans, hatred toward those who are Latinx in the community, rejecting around an immigration narrative, anti-Semitism to our Jewish brothers and sisters, and more recently, a rise in the amount of hatred directed to Asian Americans, people from any variety of different Asian countries, but still directed at them by those in Westchester County. And, I assert, growing up in this county, being born here, growing up in this county, this is not what Westchester is. Westchester is a county that not only believes that it is wrong to show racism and hatred toward people, it's also a foolish and stupid way to deal with each other in a society. If what we want is the growth of the society, the economic activity, the opportunity for everybody in America to maximize their financial and their family situation, then you want every community to flourish. You hope that every person of every ethnic opportunity, of every ethnic background gets that opportunity to contribute to the society and contribute to it economically and contribute to it socially and in other ways. This type of violence and hate crimes have jumped up dramatically. In New York City, the NYPD has noted that there's a particularly high incidence now of anti-Asian American to go along with the other things that have been shown and violence that follows that. President Biden has signed an executive order denouncing this and trying to take action. Let me speak from my own personal heritage. I am of Irish American and Italian American heritage, and that's a fairly common heritage in Westchester County. I go back 2 generations to Ireland, 3 generations to Italy. And the stories that I was told through my parents, because I did not know my great-grandparents who were in Italy, and my grandfather had passed away from Ireland by the time I was of age to know. And they told stories of prejudice directed to Irish and Italians here in this country by the people who were the residents of America at that point in time. I don't need to add ethnicity to it. And the things that were said were awful. All Italian Americans were mobsters. All Irish American were drunks. These types of terrible stereotypes that were directed. And my parents would tell me what that prejudice looked like in a country that was still growing economically. It certainly needed the manual labor and the energy that European immigrants brought to it, and immigrants from other countries, and of course those who were brought here involuntarily through slavery in Africa. But now, as I look around Westchester County and I see the breadth and the success of Westchester County, I see people who share my ethnicity, some who now project that prejudice to other groups, who now look on other groups in the same way that our common ethnicities were looked upon when they came to this country and to this area all those years ago. I don't know what my grandparents would say, great-grandparents would say if they were alive today, and what it was like to be called demeaning. I'm not going to share the words. We've all heard it in conversation. But what I draw to it is that the American dream gave them the opportunities, the Latimers and the Mayneros, to come to this country and have a better future. And all those generations later, their grandson, great-grandson, stands before you here as an accepted part of the American narrative. And that's why We don't want to see the continuation of hatred toward any ethnic group because it demeans the individual and it limits that individual's chance to contribute to the society. And their contribution to the society advances the whole of the society. The scientists, the people with technological skill, the people who understand how to advance social connection in the society, and the achievement that somebody feels when they look as a child at somebody who's a grown adult of their ethnic background, and they see achievement and they say, that could be me. The self-esteem that grows out of that, knowing that I too could have that. The de minimis behavior toward the immigrant generation that spawned a few generations later me is the same thing looking forward, that in 40 and 50 and 60 years, today's immigrants, or the people that you're prejudiced against today, will be part of this economic society going forward. There is no room for anti-Semitism. There's no room for racism against African Americans. There's no room for anti-immigrant behavior toward those who are immigrants, particularly from Latin America, but those from Muslim countries as well. And I might add, there's no reason to have hatred to Italian Americans. There's no reason to stereotype Italian Americans as mobsters. And I say that with great pride from my Italian American roots. And there's no reason to criticize Irish Americans or German Americans or Native Americans, any of these backgrounds and ethnicities. Martin Luther King said it, and he said it for all time when he said, to judge us not by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. And that content of our character is what unites us. It's what puts us all together, and men and women, and those of various sexual identity descriptions. They put us together as humans, humans on a planet. This pandemic affects us all. If you look, as we have, at a list of those people we've lost people from every one of these ethnic groups. We've lost people of different ages. We've lost people who have different career backgrounds. This pandemic has not spared anybody. We have one of our colleagues here. His wife is going to give birth any day now. We're very excited over that. We have another one of our colleagues here who gave birth a couple of months ago. She's back with us working, haven't given birth. We've had some other folks. The joy of childbirth is something that we share across every one of these dotted lines. The joy of knowing, friends who are saying, we're going to get married. We're going to have a life together. That's a human joy. The human joy of accomplishment. My child is graduating from high school or college. You feel that across any ethnic line. The achievement that you have, when you promote somebody, that joy that you have, that's what should be our focus and link us together. It's not be politically correct. No. It's recognize our common humanity, that we're here together. Our backgrounds are different. The arc of our individual lives are different. I did this for a living. You did that for a living. But we're united because we're here now sharing the same patch of earth with an opportunity for each of us to contribute to that and to do it in a positive way. That's why you don't have hatred against Asian Americans or against anybody else. I'll distill it down for my last comment, and then we're going to introduce somebody to you that I'm very proud to introduce. I wasn't much of an athlete as a kid. I'm not particularly any more athletic now than I was then. I played baseball, and I played it fairly poorly, but I enjoy the game. And I wound up managing Little League after I realized I wasn't going to be able to play competitively into my 20s. But I watched how many different players it took to win a baseball game. You need, if you don't know this already, I'm sure you do. You need pitching. You need starting pitching. You need relief pitching. You need people who can play the infield and second, short, and third are rather energetic positions where you have to have quick hands and move quickly. First base position is a little bit differently structured. And then the outfield positions that require speed. And oftentimes you expect hitting ability and offensive ability from your first baseman, your outfielders. And then you realize that baseball, a little bit unlike football and basketball, does not require a particular physical build. You might be tall, you might be short, you might be heavyset, you might not be. You might be particularly muscular, you might not be. But the skill set to perform in baseball cuts across a number of different situations. And you can have a team that looks very different from catcher to center fielder to first baseman to pitchers. But it's the combination of those skills that win a game. I was on one team at age 13, it was PAL League in Mount Vernon, that won a championship. And when we won, it was white kids, black kids, fat kids and skinny kids, and tall kids and short kids, and we were so happy together. We hugged each other. We jumped up and down. We all got taken out for an ice cream or something. I forget the moment. But we were happy as a team because we won as a team. That's what Westchester should be about, that we can win as a team. We can look past the differences in skin color and age and all those other things and win as a team. And that's the message. Not don't be filled with hate. Look at the positives of what happens when we unify. When we have a common goal, we have a common humanity, we unify, we have our differences. We're always going to, we're always going to have our differences. And we're going to express those differences, sometimes in an agitated way. But at the end of the day, the unity is what advances as a society. And that's the single biggest reason why the hatred doesn't work, because the hatred takes us backwards. The hatred divides us, and we can't be the best we can be if we're not united. So I share that thought with you, and I hope you agree. And I hope we go forward and we have a minimal number of these incidents, and we respect every other person that we see as our brother and sister, and we let the content of their character drive the way we assess them. Now I'd like to introduce to you a gentleman who has been with the county government for many number of years. He started out as an intern in the department that he is now going to head. He is our new commissioner of the Department of Social Services. He takes on the largest department of county government. It's a department of county government that has very specific responsibilities that are designated not just by what we think should happen in the county government leadership, but by state law and federal law. It is a department that has a large workforce. It is a complicated set of rules that we have to live under, and we're dealing with people who are in the greatest amount of need in the county. It can be very difficult to lead this group forward. We have had the service, we respect the service of the outgoing commissioner, Kevin McGuire, who is now retired, but we were excited to announce that our new commissioner for social services is Leonard Townes. And I want you to meet him and him to share just a few thoughts as he takes on this responsibility. We're all very happy that he has agreed to take on this responsibility and the headaches that come with it. And I've advised him that if his hair turns gray, just let it go. Leonard, you'll look more distinguished. The Honorable Leonard Townes.
Thank you, George. Thank you, everyone. First and foremost, I'd like to thank God for instilling this purpose in my life. I feel like there's no greater work than serving those in need, and this opportunity is one I'm grateful to step forward and take on. I want to give thanks to County Executive George Latimer, who has given me the privilege of calling him George, and his executive staff, Ken Jenkins and Joan McDonald, for entrusting me with this awesome assignment. I also want to thank Ms. Diane Atkins, the liaison to the Department of Social Services. She blazed the trail in our department and set an example of commitment and dedication that served to inspire me and countless others. When I began my career back in 1986, I had no thought of ever being commissioner of the Department of Social Services. This was the last thing on my radar. And as it turns out, I started at the bottom, but now I'm here, and I'm grateful, and I'm looking forward to doing great things. And I have to say that the timing of this event and the opportunity to be named commissioner during Black History Month is not lost on me. I'll never forget those who paved the road for which I walk. You know, they had a treacherous journey. Their courage was great through that journey. Their vision was keen. Their devotion to the cause of justice was sacred. And, I'm just very grateful for all that they've done, and I'm looking forward to standing on their shoulders to do great work. The county is a great place to work. I've been here for 34 years and have had many of opportunities, and I'm just so grateful for George and his team for allowing people to rise up through the ranks and do great things. I have a great staff over across the street. They're talented, they're dedicated, and they're hardworking people, and they're stepping up during these challenging times that we're facing as humanity to fill in the voids that are needed for service, such as vaccination centers and contact tracing. They're doing great work, and I'm proud of them, and I'm just grateful to be able to lead this team forward into the future, continuing the work that began in 2018 when George's administration came into play. And going forward, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to working with all the commissioners in the department. I've built some great relationships already, and we're looking to come together as a team and meet the needs of all the people in Westchester County. I know we have a Herculean task in front of us, but I'm confident that with the teamwork we put forward, we'll be successful. So I just want to thank you once again, George. Thank you, Ken, and I look forward to doing great things for Westchester County. Thank you.
Thank you, Leonard. Thank you very much. And we're very happy that Leonard's taken on this responsibility. During the 3 years of our administration, a little over 3 years now, When we came on board, we did something that isn't normal. We did not fire everybody who led a department when we came in. Oftentimes you see that happen, particularly when there's a change of administration and it goes from one political party to the other. We did not do that. We thought that there were a number of professionals that were in charge in departments, and we kept quite a few of them in place because we felt that they could capably run those departments. We made some changes as well, and in some cases we brought talented people from the outside inside, and in some cases we promoted from within. We promoted from within in the planning department, in the public safety department. We promoted from within in the Department of Community Mental Health. Where we had individuals who had served in county government, we recruited them to come back in DPW transportation and corrections. And then we've used deputy commissioner positions to broaden by bringing some people in from the outside, where we've promoted from the inside to commissioner, bring people from the outside in as deputy commissioners, and establish first deputy commissioners to try to create in each department a team of people committed to their task. We have tasked Leonard and all of his colleagues who have the title of either commissioner or executive director or department head. Now, if you're a department head and you have a smaller size department, you are still a leader in this government. You're still part of the senior management team. When we have those meetings, they sit around the table as well. Solid Waste Commission, Taxi and Limousine Commission, Human Rights, and other organizations like that, Youth Board and so forth. When we task individuals as well in these areas, we give them greater freedom perhaps than has happened in the past. We have encouraged our commissioners to be open in dialogue with the county legislature, the members of the Board of Legislators. Both Ken and I chaired the county legislatures at various times in the past, and we didn't feel that sort of the micromanagement in the executive branch ought to be that everything comes through the executive chamber here on the 9th floor, that we wanted commissioners to be able to have the kind of cooperative relationship with the Board of Legislators, the legislative body, separate co-equal branch of government, and then also to be able to speak to the press on the vast majority of situations. Now, when a press question comes up and it involves a matter of public policy that's decided by senior management, then direct the question to us. But if there are questions that can be better answered by the commissioner or some other person in the department, we're open to have that happen. We're not defensive. We're not, you can't know this, you can't know that. We know sometimes that questions are asked not to get more information, but to try to create a certain climate, and sometimes in a combative or negative way. We deal with those as they arise. And some folks will say, well, you've been open here, but you're not open there. Well, we look at the intent, and we look at the intent sometimes from people. Some people call themselves journalists who really aren't. They're advocates. And what they really want to do is to try to undermine this sense of openness. They want to use openness against us. I want openness to be there for the greatest amount of time so that Leonard and the team that he has at DSS can do the best possible job. When they think of something innovative that can be done, we discuss it. When we have a problem, we work through it, and we let that management happen. That's the management style that I saw in my 20 years in corporate life that was the most effective. I had all different kinds of management above me, but when I saw management that was open and inclusive, it was the most effective management. We did the best possible job we could for the corporations that I was in, and that's the kind of strategy we have now, and that's the kind of mission and directive we give to Leonard as he goes forward to do what he can do in that department, and hopefully we can partner and we can make progress on these things. So with that, I'm going to stop the narrative, go to questions. We have no questions. Okay, well, I guess we put our friends in the press to sleep. I apologize for that. But any members of the press who wish to reach out to us, you're welcome to do that. I certainly invite their dialogue with Commissioner Townes as our newest commissioner, or any of our senior new managers. And we've announced a variety of people here. When Lisa Reyes came on board, she's on the other side of the camera right now. When she came on board, we had her on this side so that you could see her. You've seen her before, News 12. Now you see her in Our World. Same with Carolyn Fortino, who was with FiOS before she joined us. The promotions that we've had from Arthur Lopez, for other individuals that we're very proud of. And as we have other ones, we believe we're going to be making some announcements in the law department in a senior position. We'll have John Nona with us here to make that announcement and introduce you so that you have an idea of the faces that go into county government. I recognize that the county government is not the most important, the most mindful government that you have every day. In fact, we may be the lowest on the totem pole because you care about, as we all do, what's happening in Washington, D.C., and then you care what's happening in your backyard. And then somewhere in the middle is the state and the county, and the state's bigger, has more scope and authority and a host of different areas, so it gets more attention than we do. That's fine. The job we have to do, we have responsibilities to do it. We're tasked with them. We try to do the best job we can, and we're happy when we can expand our leadership team to include people of talent like Leonard Townes and others. So with that, I'm going to thank you for watching. With no further questions, we will be back again on Monday. We'll give you an updated report of where we are. We hope that the infection numbers continue to drop. That would be good. We know that the vaccination numbers will continue to rise as we start vaccinating in Yonkers. We'll add those numbers to the mix. That should get us a nice sized jump in what our situation is. We'll monitor the decisions coming out of Albany, and we'll react as best as we can as a local government to that, and we'll continue to partner with the towns, villages, and cities. We'll partner with our school board and school superintendent individuals, and we'll do our very best. So thank you for watching. Have a safe weekend.